If you ever want to meet anyone who knows the law well, you can speak to me. I know it backwards. I studied it, was quizzed on it, was examined on it, and I lived it. At seminary, I was the star student, the envy of all my friends. I got the highest marks and prizes for being top of my class. I was more advanced than all my contemporaries in my studies. And when I graduated, well, I could have my pick of jobs. I could go to the synagogue of my choosing. I'm a citizen of the world, a Hebrew of the Hebrews. I'm fluent in Greek, and I'm a Roman citizen. But my apologies, I haven't introduced myself. My name is Saul of Tarsus. You probably know me better as Paul, the man who wrote the Bible, or the New Testament at least. Of course, that was never my intention. Mostly those were letters to congregations just like you. I never set out to become the author of the New Testament. I was just writing to congregations where there were problems and where there was dissension, where strange beliefs were corrupting the gospel I came to know and love. A gospel that literally threw me to the ground and made me realize that everything I know is worthless. That no matter how well I knew the law, and I did know it well, it was all nothing but a ball of dung. You see, the thing is, we all like to keep up appearances. The way we look, the way we speak, the way we dress. Well, to be quite honest, I've never been very much to look at. Never been able to find a wife, and maybe it's because I was too short or too hot-headed, or maybe my nose is too big. And so I gave myself over to following the law so that everybody could at least see how righteous I was. And then Jesus changed me. Oh, I hated that man. I hated what he spoke about. I hated his followers. In fact, I was on my way to Damascus to put them in jail, to hunt them down like rats. But Jesus threw me to the ground and showed me a way better than the law. A way that leads to life that's not written on any dusty scroll. A way that leads beyond words to the living word. I've given my life over to that now, and surely this will be what leads me to my death. But I have no option other than going from place to place to share the good news, traveling and writing and preaching, going from town to town and from church to church, setting up small groups, allowing the healing presence of God in Jesus Christ to touch people, all the while trying to keep the peace where I am not, trying to keep the peace within my group of missionaries, trying to keep peace with the believers in Jerusalem, trying to keep the peace among the many churches that I planted. But this morning I want to share with you what I wrote to the Romans all those years ago. I wrote telling them firstly to wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. I hope there's nobody sleeping here this morning. There was once somebody who fell asleep while I was sleeping, and he fell out the window to his death. By God's grace, he lived again. But are you awake? Are your eyes open? Can you see what's happening around you? Often I pray that the followers of Jesus would have their eyes open to be able to see the full extent of God's love. And not only that, but also the presence of his kingdom, as Jesus himself preached, that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's so close that you can reach out and touch it. Be woke to the realities of life, because the night is nearly over and day is here. You know what, my friends? You can't go on living in a dream world any longer. You can't go on pretending that nothing is changing. You can't go on pretending that everything is going to be okay. It's not. You need to wake up and look around you. This is an urgent matter. It's what happened to me when I met Jesus on my way to Damascus. I was so comfortable in my righteousness. I was so comfortable in my belief system. I knew who I was and what I was doing and where I was going. But I had to wake up. I had to wake up to a new reality. A place where things were different and uncomfortable and unexpected. You have to wake up. That's my experience. It's my message. And it's the message of Jesus, whom I love, whom I follow, and whom I declare as Lord. But friends, when you wake up, when you can no longer lie asleep, you also have to behave decently. You see, we wake up because the day is coming, the sun is rising. In fact, nothing can stop the sun from rising. Even now, it's lightning outside. Even as we begin to see the first light of the new day, we know that the sun is going to rise. It doesn't matter how long it will take, but in a few hours the whole world is going to be flooded with light. Not just of the rising sun, but of the resurrected Jesus. The funny thing about light is that you see things that you don't see in the darkness. As the sun rises and light floods over us, we see the drunkenness and the hangovers and the promiscuity. We see what's really been happening during the night while it was dark. We see all our brokenness, all the mess, the empty booze bottles, the cigarette stompies and the used condoms lying around after our party of last night. It was nice to sleep. To fall asleep in a drunken stupor, not being aware of what was really going on around us. But as the sun rises and in the morning light, things look different. We realize that we're filled with regrets and disappointment. The coming day, the rising sun reminds us and implores us to behave decently. Friends, to behave decently, not religiously. I know all about religion, but to behave decently. And to encounter God. To discover the kingdom of God which is here at hand, if only we will wake up and see it. Our conversion is a moment of moving from darkness to light. When I lost my sight at that moment of encountering Jesus, I had to have my eyes opened again. As my friend Peter wrote, we are God's chosen people who've been called out of darkness and into God's wonderful light. It means that we live differently. We move out of the dream world where we turn this way and that to dull our sense. We move out of the dream world where we use cheap sex to avoid the difficulty of a real relationship. We move out of the dream world where we use drugs to numb the pain of being alive. We move out of the dream world where we use alcohol to help us cope with the reality that has disappointed us. And we move into the light of Jesus. We behave decently. And friends, then the last thing I want to say to you this morning, as you have woken up as you move from darkness to light. The last thing I want to say this morning is that you clothe yourself with Jesus. I don't know what you wear to bed. But when you get up in the morning, you take off your pajamas and you put on clean clothes. You make yourself up for the day where people will be watching you, where people will be making a judgment based on how you look. You do your best to look good and dress appropriately for the work that you do. My friends, as a follower of Jesus, you need to dress like Jesus. You need to clothe yourself with Him so that when others look at you, they see our Lord. They don't see someone who is religious. They don't see someone who is legalistic. They don't see someone who is self-righteous and holier than thou. Jesus was never like that. If that's what Jesus was like, I would have liked Him. We would have been best friends. But He wasn't. Jesus was the one who was filled with grace and love. Jesus is the one who was never too good to sit down with the drunkard or the sinner or the prostitute. Jesus was the one who took the broken and heals and mends them and gives people another chance. Jesus doesn't speak a word of judgment. I hated Jesus for that. And that's what I had to learn. I had to learn to take off, not to take off my drunken behavior. I was never like that. I was always too good. But I had to learn to take off my self-righteousness. I had to learn to take off my legalism. I had to learn to take off my trust in the law for my salvation and stand naked before God with nothing to cling to. That's what Jesus taught me on the road to Damascus. That's what I discovered in the darkness of my blindness. That everything I knew, everything I had based my life on was worthless. And it was only when I stood before God with none of that, naked as the day I was born, that I was able to clothe myself with Jesus. And I was able to cover myself with His righteousness, that I was able to move from the law that I was so good at and that I loved so much to the law of love and grace. Well, it took a while, you better believe that. I had fights and arguments. I was difficult and obstinate and hot-headed. I still do the things I do not want to do, and do not do the things I know I ought. But slowly, as I put away everything that is not of Him, I discover that there is nothing left of self, and God is all, and is in all, and is through all, even me. Well, here we are in Advent, the start of the Christian year. God knows where that comes from, because I never wrote about it. But here we are in this time of hope and celebration, this time of expectation. A time when we celebrate moving away from the carousing and drunkenness of the night to the bright sunlight of the new day. And Christmas, when you celebrate the birth of Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us, so much of drunkenness and drunk driving and parties and drinking, so much of excessive spending and eating and overindulgence. Thank God I died 2,000 years ago. Wake up. Behave decently. Put on Jesus and discover the life He has for you. Not the life that you try to dull yourself from. Not the life that advertisers try to sell you. That does nothing but make you miserable and put you in debt. But the life that is truly life. As I wrote to my friends at Colossae, the secret is simply this: Christ in you. Yes, Christ in you, bringing with Him the hope of all glorious things to come. And friends, that is our hope at this Christmas time. Emmanuel, God with us. That Jesus is born in us, that Jesus clothes us, that Jesus is present wherever we are and in whatever capacity. I pray that as we seek to clothe ourselves this Christmas time, that we would truly discover life and hope and meaning and purpose. And that indeed it would be a meaningful Christmas for all of us. Amen. Let's be quiet.